More than 58,000 Jeep Wranglers have been recalled due to an extra part that could lead to fuel leakage and create a fire.
In a surprising twist, Jeep, once the undisputed champion of off-road excitement, now faces shocking setbacks. Today we are uncovering the hidden moves, corporate missteps, and startling truths behind this unbelievable downfall, giving you an exclusive peek behind the scenes. Has Stellantis turned a trusted favorite into a cautionary tale? Will devoted fans abandon the brand? And what does this mean for anyone craving real driving freedom? By the end, you will know exactly how this affects your future car choices and why it might change everything you thought you knew about Jeep. Stay with us as we reveal the root causes, explore the massive consequences, and unpack the reasons you should care. The shocking collapse of an iconic brand. For decades, Jeep stood as a testament to strength and capability. Its reputation was built on the backs of vehicles like the Wrangler, the Cherokee, and the Grand Cherokee, all known for their off-road prowess and reliability. However, in a series of decisions that baffled industry experts, Stellantis, the parent company of Jeep, began dismantling everything that made Jeep great. The results? A financial and reputational catastrophe that is still unfolding. Consumers have noticed. Enthusiasts who once swore by Jeep are now looking elsewhere, frustrated by the lack of quality, the skyrocketing prices, and the identity crisis that has turned their favorite brand into something unrecognizable. The decline of Jeep is not just a story of corporate mismanagement, it is a cautionary tale of what happens when a company loses sight of its most valuable asset, its customers. And here is where it gets even worse. Jeep's biggest mistake was just the beginning of its downfall. The fatal decision that killed Jeep's identity. What if Jeep's downfall was not an accident, but a planned decision? Stellantis did not just mismanage the brand, they actively reshaped it into something it was never meant to be. The essence of Jeep, its ruggedness, its dependability, its appeal to outdoor enthusiasts, was stripped away in favor of something unrecognizable. Stellantis made a series of cost-cutting moves that, at first glance, seemed like standard corporate strategies. They swapped durable steel components for cheaper plastic parts. They pushed models into luxury pricing categories while failing to meet the quality expectations that come with such a high price tag. They reduced production oversight, leading to glaring defects in brand new models. In short, they sacrificed Jeep's identity for a short-term financial gain. But Stellantis' approach was not just about cheapening materials or cutting costs, it was about shifting the brand's entire position in the market. Jeep, once a working-class favorite, was now being sold as a high-end luxury vehicle. This move alienated the core audience while failing to attract new buyers who expect a certain level of refinement and reliability from a luxury vehicle. The result? A brand stuck between two worlds, neither rugged enough for its traditional buyers nor premium enough for the luxury market. And the worst part? Stellantis thought this was a winning strategy. The $100,000 Jeep disaster. Jeep's new models were supposed to be revolutionary. Instead, they became a cautionary tale. When the Jeep Wagoneer was reintroduced, Stellantis marketed it as the ultimate blend of heritage and modern luxury. However, customers quickly realized that the vehicle did not live up to its premium price tag. For a six-figure vehicle, buyers expected perfection. What they got instead were reports of dashboard malfunctions, water leaks, and poor interior quality. Within weeks of purchasing their brand new Wagoneers, customers flooded online forums with complaints about everything from alignment issues to faulty infotainment systems. The backlash was swift and brutal. The fundamental problem was simple. Jeep had built its name on affordability and rugged durability. The attempt to transition into a luxury brand ignored decades of consumer trust and loyalty. Buyers were no longer willing to pay such a steep price for a vehicle that failed to meet their expectations. What should have been a flagship model became an industry joke, a symbol of everything wrong with Stellantis' handling of Jeep. And if pricing was Jeep's biggest issue, it was only the tip of the iceberg. The data Stellantis tried to hide. Jeep is not just struggling, its sales are collapsing at an alarming rate. The once unshakable Wrangler and Grand Cherokee have seen sales declines that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Across dealerships, inventory is piling up as consumers walk away, unwilling to pay luxury prices for a brand they no longer recognize. Instead of adapting to market trends, Stellantis doubled down on its failing strategy. The company refused to acknowledge that pricing out its core audience was a disastrous move. While competitors like Ford and Toyota adjusted to consumer demand, Jeep clung to a pricing model that was clearly failing. The data is undeniable. Wrangler sales have fallen drastically, with dealers struggling to move vehicles that once flew off the lot. The Grand Cherokee, a staple of Jeep's success, has faced a similar fate. Instead of reacting, Stellantis has continued to ignore the signals, allowing unsold inventory to pile up and leaving dealerships with vehicles they cannot move. And this was only the beginning. What Stellantis did next made things even worse. Stellantis' CEO was wrong. Carlos Tavares had built a reputation as a turnaround expert, someone who could take struggling car brands and make them profitable again. But in his pursuit of efficiency, he made one critical mistake. He underestimated Jeep's core audience. Instead of reinforcing what made Jeep great, he prioritized short-term profits, cutting costs in ways that alienated the very customers who had kept the brand alive for generations. At first, it seemed like Stellantis was making all the right moves. The company streamlined operations, reduced expenses, and focused on high-margin models. Investors were pleased, and the financial reports looked promising. But beneath the surface, Jeep was eroding from the inside. The company's decision to push Jeep into the luxury market without maintaining the quality expected at premium prices created a disconnect that customers could not ignore. Jeep had always been a symbol of rugged dependability. Its buyers were not looking for luxury. They wanted vehicles that could handle mud, snow, and steep inclines. But under Tavares' leadership, Stellantis rebranded Jeep as a high-end status symbol. The price of the Wagoneer soared to nearly double that of previous models, yet its craftsmanship did not match the cost. Customers who had been loyal for years suddenly found that Jeep no longer represented them. The strategy to move Jeep up market was flawed from the start. Competitors like Ford and Toyota knew their audiences well and focused on offering well-priced, durable vehicles. Meanwhile, Stellantis attempted to convince traditional Jeep buyers to pay significantly more for a product that no longer delivered on its core promises. As dealerships struggled to move these overpriced models, the reality of Jeep's downfall became evident. Tavares believed he could manipulate the market, cut costs, raise prices, and increase profits, all while maintaining customer loyalty. But Jeep owners were not like the average car buyer. They valued function over form, and they had no problem walking away when the brand they loved no longer served their needs. While Stellantis was focused on financial optimization, customers were quietly turning to competitors that stayed true to their brand identities. This miscalculation did more than just harm sales. It triggered a ripple effect that would soon lead to a crisis Jeep could not escape: the quality control crisis. When customers spend a fortune on a vehicle, they expect it to be flawless. But for those who purchased the new Wagoneer, the experience was anything but. Reports of mechanical failures, water leaks, and dashboard malfunctions began surfacing within weeks of release. Customers who had trusted Jeep for decades were now questioning whether the brand had lost its way. The most alarming part of this crisis was not just the defects, it was Stellantis' response. Instead of addressing the issues, the company doubled down, refusing to slow production or issue widespread recalls. Internal reports from employees suggested that manufacturing lines were under immense pressure to meet deadlines, even if that meant overlooking quality control. One buyer, after driving his Wagoneer for only a few weeks, noticed his dashboard vibrating every time he hit the highway. Another discovered a massive water leak during a rainstorm, soaking the interior of his six-figure vehicle. These were not minor inconveniences. They were glaring signs that Jeep's legendary craftsmanship had been compromised in favor of rushed production and cheaper materials. Stellantis could have taken action, but instead it treated these problems as isolated incidents rather than widespread defects. This approach only fueled customer frustration. Social media platforms filled with complaints, dealerships struggled to explain the issues, and customer trust plummeted. For decades, Jeep had built its reputation on durability, but with every failed Wagoneer and defective Wrangler, that reputation was fading. Buyers were no longer willing to pay premium prices for vehicles that could not deliver on their most basic promises. And just as customers were starting to lose faith, competitors saw an opportunity they could not pass up. Ford and Toyota saw Jeep's weakness and took over. While Stellantis was focused on cost-cutting, its competitors were perfecting their strategies. Ford, with its revival of the Bronco, understood the importance of heritage and quality. The new Bronco was everything the Wrangler once was: tough, reliable, and built for adventure. And unlike Jeep, Ford did not price its off-road icon out of reach. Toyota also saw an opening. The Land Cruiser, a legendary name in the off-road world, made a triumphant return, giving customers another alternative to Jeep. Toyota knew that buyers wanted dependability, not gimmicks. The Land Cruiser delivered that with a balance of modern technology and the rugged performance customers had come to expect. Even Tesla capitalized on Jeep's downfall. The Cybertruck, though controversial in design, appealed to a new generation of off-road enthusiasts looking for an alternative to traditional gasoline-powered SUVs. It was futuristic, durable, and, most importantly, different. As these brands gained traction, Stellantis was slow to respond. Instead of making adjustments to win back customers, the company continued pushing its luxury-focused strategy. The result was predictable. Ford, Toyota, and Tesla steadily took market share away from Jeep. For decades, Jeep had dominated the off-road segment. Now it was struggling to compete. The customers who once swore by the Wrangler and Grand Cherokee were now turning elsewhere. Jeep's leadership refused to acknowledge the problem, but it would soon become impossible to ignore. Stellantis' financial moves are backfiring big time. Jeep's sales slump was not just a problem for the brand, it was a financial nightmare for Stellantis. The company had placed a massive bet on high-margin vehicles like the Wagoneer, assuming that customers would accept the increased prices without hesitation. But as dealerships sat on unsold inventory, it became clear that Stellantis had overestimated demand. Across the country, Jeep dealers were struggling. Warehouses filled with unsold Wranglers and Grand Cherokees, some sitting on lots for months without a buyer. Meanwhile, Stellantis continued to push its aggressive pricing strategy, refusing to lower prices even as sales plummeted. The financial impact was devastating. Stellantis had expected Jeep to be one of its most profitable brands, but now it was bleeding money. Investors took notice, and stock prices began to reflect the growing uncertainty. Desperate to fix the problem, Stellantis considered drastic measures. Rumors circulated that the company was preparing to shift more production overseas in an attempt to cut costs further, but that decision would only add to the growing dissatisfaction among American workers and customers alike. At the same time, the company faced another pressing issue: dealer pushback. Frustrated by the lack of support from Stellantis, many dealers started speaking out, warning that they could no longer sustain their businesses if Jeep's pricing and quality issues were not addressed. Stellantis had once believed it could control the market, but now it was clear that the market was controlling Stellantis. Customers had spoken, competitors had seized the opportunity, and Jeep's financial future was at risk. The worst part, Stellantis still had not learned its lesson. Instead of adjusting its approach, it was preparing to double down on a strategy that had already proven disastrous. Jeep was no longer just losing customers, it was losing its place in the industry. And if Stellantis did not act fast, the brand's downfall could soon become irreversible. The layoffs that prove Stellantis is out of ideas. Thousands of workers once believed that Jeep stood for stability, pride, and resilience. That belief began to crumble when Stellantis, in a sweeping attempt to cut expenses, triggered large-scale layoffs. Entire teams who had spent decades perfecting the art of crafting reliable off-road vehicles found themselves without positions. For these workers, it felt like Stellantis was admitting defeat, as though the company was announcing that it no longer knew how to fix the problems undermining one of its most iconic brands. Stellantis insisted that reducing the workforce was a necessary adjustment, an unfortunate but unavoidable measure in the face of falling revenues and stockholder pressure. Employees, however, saw this action as confirmation that leadership had run out of practical solutions. Instead of focusing on restoring quality or reconnecting with Jeep's core audience, Stellantis sacrificed the very people who knew Jeep's DNA best. Many of those who lost their jobs had direct experience building the Wrangler and the Grand Cherokee at various assembly plants. These layoffs sent a grim message to the entire automotive industry. A brand once known for adventure and reliability was now synonymous with uncertainty and cost-cutting. Dealership personnel wondered how they could continue selling vehicles if the organization behind them seemed more concerned about budgets than about producing dependable products. Shoppers watched from a distance and questioned whether Jeep's storied legacy had any relevance left. By letting go of workers rather than fixing the root causes of the brand's problems, Stellantis signaled a disheartening truth. It was more willing to shrink its payroll than undertake the deeper, more expensive work required to restore Jeep to greatness. Jeep dealers are sounding the alarm, and Stellantis is ignoring them. As Jeep's situation worsened, dealers tried warning Stellantis that the current strategy was putting them in an impossible position. When showrooms are stocked with vehicles too expensive for the average buyer, and when stories of quality failures are circulating, attracting new customers becomes a monumental challenge. Local dealers pleaded for price adjustments, improved warranty support, and stronger marketing efforts that would remind shoppers why Jeep was worth their hard-earned money. Stellantis leaders, however, seem to be operating from a fortress of spreadsheets, focusing on balance sheets rather than the real experiences of the people selling their products. Dealers found themselves saddled with inventory that would not move. Many reported that customers walked in curious about Jeep, but left disillusioned by the high costs and uncertain reliability. The gap between Stellantis executives and the front lines became glaring, exposing a disconnect that threatened to sink one of the automotive world's most famous names. This rift had a ripple effect. Stagnant inventory hurt profitability for dealers, who must cover overhead costs while unsold vehicles linger on their lots. Some resorted to offering steep discounts simply to stay afloat, which undercut Jeep's carefully crafted premium image. Others explored carrying fewer Jeep models in favor of brands that recognized their feedback. By ignoring these pleas for help, Stellantis eroded the confidence of some of its strongest partners. Dealers who had once taken pride in displaying the Jeep logo began wondering if they were better off focusing on manufacturers with clearer brand direction. The crisis was no longer just about the vehicles, it was about the entire relationship network that held Jeep together. The move to Mexico, a final betrayal. As sales continued to spiral downward, Stellantis implemented yet another controversial tactic, shifting production of certain Jeep models from American factories to facilities in Mexico. For many loyal Jeep customers, this decision represented a betrayal of the brand's heritage. Jeep had always carried an aura of American grit, from its origins in military service to its iconic status as the rugged adventurer's best friend. Relocating assembly lines away from the United States seemed to abandon that legacy. Stellantis justified the move by citing financial pressures and the need to cut operational costs. Executives insisted that international production would stabilize Jeep's bottom line, keeping the brand alive in an increasingly competitive global market. Critics, however, argued that this shift undermined Jeep's identity even more. It was not simply about where the vehicles were built, but about what that implied to consumers who associated Jeep with homegrown determination and craftsmanship. Workers who had already faced layoffs felt the sting of this decision acutely. Jobs that might have sustained local communities were now heading across the border, leaving entire towns worried about their future. Consumers also hesitated, uncertain whether a Mexico-built Jeep would match the reliability they once took for granted. Some die-hard fans pledged to avoid any model that did not originate on American soil. That lingering sense of betrayal overshadowed every announcement Stellantis made about these cost-saving measures. With brand loyalty fading and longtime enthusiasts feeling dismissed, the company's decision to produce Jeeps outside the United States risked alienating the last segment of diehards who still wanted to believe in Jeep's authenticity. Can Jeep be saved? Despite all the turmoil, there remains a sliver of hope that Jeep can reclaim its position as a beloved American icon. Many enthusiasts point out that the brand still carries immense goodwill, even if it has been tested by misguided leadership and production mishaps. Rebuilding trust, however, will require bold moves that go beyond incremental cost-cutting or sporadic price promotions. Above all, Stellantis needs to confront what went wrong with full transparency. Owners who faced mechanical nightmares or took a financial hit on a pricey Wagoneer want genuine apologies and meaningful solutions. That could mean extended warranties, specialized maintenance programs, or robust recalls where necessary. By demonstrating a willingness to take responsibility, Stellantis may begin to mend its fractured relationship with Jeep's core supporters. A renewed emphasis on quality control is also essential. Bringing back the kind of rugged durability that once defined Jeep could persuade jaded customers to give the brand another chance. Incorporating advanced safety features without neglecting off-road capability might create a lineup that appeals to both traditionalists and modern families. Enhancing the design so it feels authentically adventurous, rather than artificially luxurious, could remind people why they love Jeep in the first place. Finally, Stellantis must reconsider its approach to dealerships, involving dealers in strategy discussions, addressing their concerns about affordability, and giving them more tools to serve buyers effectively can rebuild trust from the ground up. If local showrooms believe in Jeep's future, they will be better able to champion its merits to skeptical customers. Jeep's downfall has been swift and sobering, but it might not be final. The question is whether Stellantis will abandon short-sighted fixes and commit to a real turnaround, one anchored in customer satisfaction, dealer collaboration, and a renewed dedication to everything Jeep once stood for. If that happens, this storied name might yet rise from the ashes. If not, then Jeep could become just another cautionary tale in the history of ambitious brands undone by corporate miscalculation, the shifting tides of consumer demand. The automotive world is undergoing a profound transformation, and Jeep's decline is only one symptom of larger forces at play. Traditional manufacturers once relied on deep-rooted brand loyalty, assuming that heritage alone would keep customers returning. Yet today's buyers have changed their priorities. Some want enhanced fuel efficiency and cutting-edge technology, while others insist on environmentally responsible production. Even those who still appreciate a powerful engine often expect more advanced safety features and connectivity options than previous generations required. The result is a marketplace in which complacency can be fatal. Customers no longer allow brand names to dictate their spending decisions. Rapid online research and widespread social media discussions mean that any defect or misleading advertisement can spread instantaneously. A single post from a dissatisfied buyer can generate enough backlash to derail entire marketing campaigns, fueling negative perceptions that are difficult to counteract. In this hyper-connected era, it is not enough to offer a famous badge on the grille. The vehicle must deliver tangible benefits that justify its cost and its claims. As industry stalwarts scramble to adapt, the necessity of constant evolution becomes evident. Companies that once competed chiefly on horsepower and brand mystique now find themselves weighed against newcomers promising futuristic designs, efficient drivetrains, and software updates that keep vehicles relevant. This growing emphasis on forward-looking innovation has created an environment where even storied marques risk irrelevance if they fail to meet changing consumer expectations. Rivals and newcomers change the game. Against this backdrop, Ford Motor Company has poured considerable resources into battery-powered trucks and sport utility vehicles, hoping to appeal to an emerging class of drivers who want practicality without sacrificing eco-friendly credentials. Ford Motor Company still maintains its line of internal combustion engines for buyers hesitant to embrace fully electric technology, but the brand's willingness to test new concepts demonstrates a critical shift. By offering both classic and electric variants, Ford Motor Company signals an understanding of modern market fragmentation. General Motors has also embraced a dual strategy, pouring investment into the development of hybrid and electric powertrains while continuing to produce popular models that run on gasoline. This approach acknowledges the global nature of the industry, allowing the company to cater to regions with varying regulations, fuel prices, and charging infrastructures. Critics argue that catering to such diverse markets can dilute a company's focus, yet General Motors sees it as a calculated risk that enables long-term stability. New contenders complicate matters further. Tesla's swift rise is well known, but other startups are entering the ring with bold concepts targeting specific niches. Some emphasize off-road electric capabilities, believing they can capture the adventure market once dominated by Jeep. Others focus on ultra-modern styling or subscription-based ownership models. Each of these competitors nibbles away at the customer base of older brands, drawing buyers who seek technological novelty or a cleaner environmental footprint. Labor and production in flux. Global realignments in manufacturing also play a significant role in the auto industry's changes. Many car makers have moved or considered moving production to regions with lower labor costs, hoping to protect profit margins in an era of ballooning research and development expenses. Yet this practice often triggers backlash from employees and consumers who feel that local jobs are being sacrificed for short-term gains. Strikes, protests, and political pressure sometimes follow announcements of plant closures or relocations, spotlighting deeper questions about corporate responsibility. When workers voice their frustrations, they frequently find support from customers who prefer to purchase vehicles assembled by fairly compensated labor forces. This sentiment can sway purchasing decisions, particularly when other companies promote their commitment to domestic production. A brand that once ruled the market may see its authority weaken if the public perceives it as abandoning the communities that shaped its identity. Balancing cost efficiency with social responsibility is no longer an afterthought. Consumers watch every strategic move, demanding transparency and ethical conduct. Shifts in driving culture also have an impact. Some metropolitan areas are making personal vehicle ownership less appealing, promoting ride-sharing or developing more efficient public transit. Meanwhile, future-focused analysts predict a gradual march toward driverless fleets that could reshape personal mobility. While certain manufacturers, including Tesla, eagerly pursue autonomous technology, others remain wary of legal challenges, safety concerns, and the expense of large-scale testing. The next decade may see the most significant changes to driving culture since the dawn of mass-market automobiles. And if you want to stay updated, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.